Admiral James Walker stood on the observation deck of the HS Intrepid, flagship of the human empire's 7th Exploration Fleet. Through the expansive viewport, the binary stars of the Epsilon Eridani system cast a golden-orange glow across the ship's polished hull. This was the farthest humanity had ever ventured, 35 light-years from Earth, beyond the established colonies of Alpha Centauri and Tau Ceti. Status report, Walker commanded, his voice carrying the weight of 20 years in the Imperial Space Force. Lieutenant Davis approached with a datapad. All ships in formation, Admiral. Long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures from the fourth planet. The human empire had expanded rapidly in the century since the development of the Alcubierre warp drive. From a single world to dozens of colonies across 16 star systems, humanity had encountered no intelligent life, only ruins and remnants of long-dead civilizations. The prevailing theory was that the galaxy followed cycles of rise and extinction, and humans had simply been fortunate enough to evolve during a quiet period. Could be another dead civilization, Captain Morgan suggested, her weathered face reflecting decades of similar disappointments. Wouldn't be the first time we found abandoned technology. Walker nodded but felt something different about this discovery. The energy readings were active, not residual. Prepare a detailed scan of the planet, he ordered, and ready a scout ship. I want to know what we're dealing with before we commit the fleet. The fourth planet of Epsilon Eridani was a blue-green jewel similar to Earth but larger, a super-Earth with 1.4 times the gravity. Massive oceans covered 70% of its surface, with 2 continental landmasses connected by an archipelago of islands. Commander Anna Wilson, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, studied the preliminary data with growing excitement. Breathable atmosphere, temperate climate. And wait, this can't be right. Walker looked over her shoulder at the readings. What am I seeing? These are artificial structures, sir. Enormous ones. And they're moving. The scout ship, piloted by Major Thomas Reed, approached the planet cautiously. His voice crackled over the comm system, tension evident despite the signal clarity. Admiral, you need to see this. Transmitting visual now. The holographic display in the Intrepid's command center flickered to life, showing a planetary surface unlike anything in human experience. Colossal geometric structures floated above the landscape, some the size of small moons. Cities, if they could be called that, flowed like liquid across the terrain, constantly reshaping themselves. And in orbit around the planet, a ring of material that seemed to phase between solid and energy. My God, whispered Captain Morgan. It's not a dead civilization. Admiral Walker stared at the display, his empire's certainty of solitary ascendance crumbling before his eyes. It seems, he said quietly, that the human empire is about to make first contact. The communication arrived before Admiral Walker could issue his next order, not through the ship's receivers, but directly into the minds of everyone aboard the Intrepid. It wasn't telepathy exactly, more like knowledge suddenly appearing fully formed in their consciousness. We acknowledge your arrival, children of Earth. You are welcome to approach. Major Reed's voice came through the comms, shaky but composed. Admiral, my instruments show nothing approaching, but I know they're coming to meet us. Walker felt it too, a presence moving toward the fleet, though nothing appeared on sensors. All ships maintained position. No defensive postures. I repeat, stand-down weapon systems. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as a distortion appeared in space before them, a ripple that folded reality like paper. From this dimensional crease emerged a structure, or perhaps a vessel. Unlike anything human engineers had conceived, it resembled a geometric fractal made physical, constantly reconfiguring itself while maintaining perfect symmetry, glowing with internal light that shifted through colors beyond the human spectrum. Recording everything, Commander Wilson whispered. Though it seemed a futile gesture, the object defied conventional analysis. A section of the Intrepid's hull simply disappeared, replaced by a seamless extension of the bridge. The environmental systems registered no breach, no decompression. It was as if that portion of the ship had always been open to space, yet remained perfectly habitable. In this newly created space stood a figure. It appeared humanoid only in the most basic sense, bipedal, with limbs and a head. But its form shifted subtly, as if human perception couldn't quite lock onto its true nature. Its skin, if it could be called that, rippled with patterns resembling mathematical equations and stellar cartography. "I am Lumen," the being said, though its mouth didn't move. "I speak for the Axiom." Walker stepped forward, acutely aware of representing all of humanity in this moment. "Admiral James Walker of the Human Empire. We come in peace and friendship." Lumen tilted its head, the movement too smooth to be natural. Empire, an interesting choice of structure for a species so young. Walker felt both insulted and humbled simultaneously. "We've colonized 16 star systems." "Yes," Lumen interrupted gently. "Your first steps. We have watched with interest." Captain Morgan stepped forward. "You've been observing us. We observe all emergent intelligences. You are the 73rd species to achieve interstellar travel in this galactic arm during the current cosmic cycle." The implications hit Walker like a physical blow. Not only were humans not alone, they were latecomers in a galaxy teeming with intelligent life. "The others," he managed. "Where are they?" Lumen gestured, and the space around them transformed into a three-dimensional star map, with countless points of light representing civilizations at various stages of development. Most remain within their local cluster of stars, content with their domains. Others have transcended physical form. Some have joined the Axiom. "And the ruins we found?" asked Commander Wilson. "Not all paths lead to ascension," Lumen said simply. Walker studied the map, noting how small the human empire appeared, a tiny bubble in a vast cosmic ocean of civilizations. "Why reveal yourselves to us now?" he asked. Lumen's form shifted, briefly resembling something like a smile. "Because you have reached the threshold, Admiral. Your next decisions will determine whether humanity rises or joins the ruins." The Axiom, as Lumen explained, was not merely a civilization, but a state of being. They had evolved beyond biological constraints billions of years ago, transforming themselves into entities that existed simultaneously as matter, energy, and information. Their consciousness spanned dimensions that human science had barely theorized. "What you perceive as our technology," Lumen said, guiding Walker and a small delegation through the fractal vessel, "is merely the physical manifestation of our thoughts." They passed through chambers that defied Euclidean geometry, spaces that seemed larger inside than outside. In one room, Admiral Walker witnessed what appeared to be the birth and death of a star, compressed into a swirling vortex the size of his fist. "Is this real?" he asked. "Reality is malleable at certain scales," Lumen replied. "We study cosmic processes by recreating them." Commander Wilson reached toward the miniature stellar life cycle, her scientific curiosity overcoming caution. Her hand passed through the phenomenon unharmed, but when she withdrew it, her skin briefly glowed with equations describing nuclear fusion. "Careful," Captain Morgan whispered, pulling Wilson's hand back. "It cannot harm her," Lumen assured them. "It is merely information in physical form." The delegation moved to another chamber where floating platforms held what appeared to be artifacts from countless alien cultures, tools, art objects, and devices of indeterminate purpose. "You collect things from other species?" Walker asked. "We preserve knowledge," Lumen corrected. "Each species brings unique perspectives. Even those that do not survive contribute to the greater understanding." The casual reference to extinction sent a chill through Walker. And what purpose does this greater understanding serve? For the first time, Lumen hesitated before answering. "The universe is approaching a critical juncture, Admiral. A cosmic event that occurs once in many billions of years." The chamber transformed around them, showing a visualization of galactic superclusters and the vast cosmic web connecting them. In this representation, darkness spread between the filaments, not just the darkness of empty space, but something more fundamental. The expansion of the universe accelerates, Lumen continued. Eventually, galaxies will become isolated, stars will burn out, and entropy will claim all structured matter. This is the heat death that your physicists have predicted. Walker nodded. A theory from our cosmologists, but that's trillions of years in the future. Perhaps, Lumen said, or perhaps much sooner. The cosmic constants show signs of instability. The implications were staggering. Walker looked at his fellow humans, their faces pale with the realization that they were discussing the end of everything. The Axiom's purpose, Lumen explained, is to preserve consciousness against this eventuality. We seek solutions, ways to transfer information between universes, methods to restart cosmic cycles, or means to transcend the physical limitations of this reality altogether. And humanity's role in this? Walker asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Unknown, Lumen replied. Your species possesses unique characteristics. You think differently than most. Where logical species see impossibility, humans often find creative alternatives. This quality may prove valuable. Walker wasn't sure if this was a compliment or simply an observation. So you're saying you need our help? Lumen's form shifted, geometries rearranging. We are saying that all sentient life shares a common fate. The Axiom offers knowledge and protection to those who contribute to our purpose. Captain Morgan stepped forward. And those who don't contribute are left to determine their own destiny, Lumen said, for better or worse. The return to the Intrepid was silent, each member of the delegation lost in their own thoughts. Admiral Walker had accepted a small device from Lumen, a communication link to the Axiom, a gesture of diplomatic goodwill. It sat on the conference table, an unassuming crystalline disk that occasionally pulsed with internal light. Options, Walker said finally, looking at his senior staff. Captain Morgan spoke first. We report to Earth immediately. This is beyond our authority to decide. Agreed, said Commander Wilson. But with what recommendation? The Axiom is offering us access to technology thousands, maybe millions, of years beyond ours. Lieutenant Davis, who had remained aboard during the delegation's visit, looked skeptical. At what cost? They've made it clear they expect us to contribute to their cosmic project. Walker tapped his fingers on the table. They haven't demanded anything specific. Lumen spoke of an exchange of knowledge. For now, Morgan countered. What happens when they decide humanity isn't contributing enough? The discussion continued for hours, but a consensus formed. They would establish diplomatic relations while maintaining caution. Walker would take the Intrepid back to Earth with the news, while Captain Morgan would remain in the Epsilon Eridani system with 3 ships to continue communication. No one anticipated what happened next. The news leaked. Despite strict communication protocols, someone aboard the fleet transmitted information about the first contact back to the nearest human colony. From there, it spread like wildfire throughout the human empire. By the time Admiral Walker reached Earth 2 weeks later, the Empire was in chaos. Religious institutions declared the Axiom either divine messengers or demonic entities. Financial markets collapsed as investors realized that human technology was suddenly obsolete. Political factions formed around how to respond, some advocating immediate alliance with the Axiom, others demanding isolation to preserve human independence. Most disturbing were the cults. Dozens sprang up overnight, devoted to the Axiom as gods who would deliver humanity from mortality. Mass suicides occurred on 3 colony worlds, believers convinced that death would allow them to join the Axiom in a higher form of existence. Walker stood before the Imperial Council, explaining for the 5th time everything he had witnessed. You should have contained this information, the Chancellor said, his face grim. With respect, Chancellor, that was impossible, Walker replied. The Axiom can communicate directly with our minds across vast distances. They've already reached out to several major research institutions. Indeed, scientists across the empire reported receiving downloads of knowledge, partial insights into Axiom science that had already advanced human understanding in physics, medicine, and computing by decades. "They're manipulating us," said the Minister of Defense, offering technological carrots to lead us where they want. Walker couldn't entirely disagree, perhaps, but they seemed genuine in their desire for cooperation. The meeting was interrupted by an aide rushing in with urgent news. The colony on Ta City Prime had declared independence from the Empire, stating their intention to form a direct relationship with the Axiom. 2 other colonies were reportedly considering similar moves. The Human Empire, which had weathered economic crises, resource wars, and the challenges of interstellar colonization, now faced dissolution not from external conquest, but from the mere knowledge that they were no longer alone and no longer special. As Walker left the council chamber, his communication device chimed. A private message from Captain Morgan in the Epsilon Eridani system. Axiom representatives have appeared on multiple colony worlds. They're offering direct partnerships with individual human settlements. The Empire is becoming irrelevant. What should we do? Walker had no answer. 5 years after first contact, Admiral Walker stood on a balcony overlooking New Alexandria, Earth's capital city. The skyline had changed dramatically. Traditional skyscrapers now interspersed with floating Axiom-inspired structures and transit tubes that defied gravity. "Admiral, the council is ready," said his aide, now a young woman named Lisa who had been among the first graduates of the new Axiom Human Educational Program. Walker nodded, straightening his uniform, one of the few unchanged aspects of imperial culture. He entered the council chamber, where representatives from all human worlds sat together for the first time in 3 years. The Empire had not collapsed as many had feared, but it had transformed. After initial fragmentation, humanity had reorganized into the human collective, a federation of independent colonies and Earth, united by common interests rather than central authority. Admiral Walker, the council speaker, greeted him. "Please share your assessment." Walker activated the holographic display, showing the extent of human expansion since the Axiom contact. Where once 16 star systems had marked the boundary of human influence, now over 50 bore the human presence, not through traditional colonization, but through a new model of cooperative development. "The Axiom partnership has accelerated our expansion beyond all projections," Walker explained. "But more importantly, it has fundamentally changed how we approach new worlds. Instead of the resource-intensive model of terraforming that had characterized early colonization, humans now employed Axiom methods of adaptive integration, creating habitats that worked with existing ecosystems rather than replacing them." "And the cultural impacts?" asked a representative from one of the outer colonies. Walker nodded to Lisa, who took over this portion of the briefing. "Human culture has experienced what historians are calling the Great Synthesis," she explained. "Initial religious and social upheaval has largely stabilized. Most major belief systems have incorporated the reality of the Axiom without abandoning their core principles. What she didn't mention, though everyone knew, was that humanity had stratified in new ways. Those who worked directly with Axiom knowledge had formed a new kind of elite, their minds enhanced by direct neural interfaces. Others maintained more traditional lifestyles, benefiting from Axiom technology without fully embracing it. "And what of our contribution to the Axiom's greater purpose?" asked the representative from Mars, voicing the question that had lingered since first contact. Walker took back the floor. "That remains our most significant development. 3 research collectives, combining human creativity with Axiom knowledge, have made breakthroughs in understanding the nature of consciousness transfer between dimensional states." He displayed another hologram, a visualization of the experimental results that even he didn't fully understand. The Axiom representatives have indicated that this work represents a novel approach that their civilization had not previously explored. This was humanity's vindication, proof that even against the backdrop of the Axiom's unfathomable advancement, human thinking offered something unique and valuable. As the briefing concluded, Walker returned to the balcony, looking not at the city but up at the stars now coming into view as dusk fell. Humanity's future remained uncertain. They were a minor player in a cosmic drama far larger than anyone had imagined. The human empire as originally conceived was gone, replaced by something both less autonomous and more significant. Yet Walker felt an unexpected optimism. Humans had survived the shock of discovering they were neither alone nor special in the universe. They had adapted, learned, and found their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as contributors to knowledge that might ultimately save all conscious life from the universe's final entropy. A small Axiom transport glided silently overhead, its fractal geometry now a familiar sight in Earth's skies. Within it, Walker knew, would be both Axiom representatives and human partners, working together on questions that spanned galaxies and eons. The human empire had not survived first contact intact, but humanity had emerged stronger, humbler, perhaps, but with horizons expanded beyond their wildest dreams. Admiral James Walker smiled as he turned away from the balcony. It was not the future he had imagined when he first spotted those energy signatures in the Epsilon Eridani system. It was something far more interesting.